Get Rich Slow with John Wolf. Hey, today I'm going to talk to you about some of the kind of weird and maybe dangerous, or especially if you don't understand what you're doing, things that are going on in the Portland housing market. So the Portland housing market is super hot. By hot, I don't actually mean it's hot in the normal ways where there's like a ton of transactions happening. There's a fair number, don't get me wrong. But if you are a buyer searching for a home in Portland that's in not totally wrecked condition and is less than like $700,000, many multiple offer situations are basically all of them. And people are offering 10-15% over the listing price, competing with each other, escalation clauses, and they're even waiving things like inspections and appraisal contingencies. So I just want to talk about what that means, and I feel like I'm treading into dangerous territory since I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just telling you how this smiling idiot with two thumbs reads it, and I'm going to tell you what I really think it means, and I'm also going to tell you what I think like the worst possible interpretation of it would be. So, all right, let's say you're offering on a house, and here's my just first off general advice. You're an adult. If you have the money to offer more than the appraised value of a house, and you really want it, go for it. Do I think that that's like a great get rich slow financial decision? Not really, but most of the people I help get home loans, and most people in general, are really just trying to buy a place to raise their kids with good schools that they can personally love. They're not really trying to have an amazing financial thing happen for them. And in all honesty, I would call it a win for somebody who isn't trying to do anything complicated. If you live somewhere for 10 years and when you sell it, you're cash backed enough money to have covered all of your payments and your initial closing costs and everything, so that mathematically you lived somewhere for $0 for 10 years, I would call that a win. And that's not very hard to achieve. It's kind of hard not to achieve that. So now, if you want to be like me and you want to sell it for a heck of a lot more money or have a giant passive income, that's a totally different question, right? But let's go back to talking about these things. So people waiving inspection contingencies, I mean, you can do that. I would never do that. I mean, you can promise in your contract that you're not going to ask for stuff to be fixed, but I would always want to know everything that's broken before I bought something. And that's just me. That's personal advice. You know, talk to your real estate agent about that. As far as the appraisal contingency, and this is where I might get myself in hot water, and I don't really know, and I'm not a lawyer. Don't sue me, bro. But the standard residential sales contract has two clauses. I think it's like 5.1 and 5.2, and then it even has like a sentence between them outside of the clauses. Anyways, it basically says that along with the rest of the contract, blah, 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 as long as the buyer didn't lie about their financial situation in the first place and made a good faith effort to get financing, then if the lender doesn't approve the buyer for financing or doesn't approve the property, it invokes the financing contingency. Basically, the seller has to promptly return all the earnest money at the point that the buyer can't go forward or the contract went over, or the contract ended and the financing isn't done. Same thing. And there's a clause in there about how, if the two of them make an agreement to keep the contract going, you can also stay in contract, but nobody has to do that. And it also says that if the appraiser comes in at less than the purchase price, the buyer has a free out, basically. I mean, it doesn't use those words, but that's what it means and says. Anyways, people talking about waiving appraisal contingencies. So if you just waived that specific contingency, I would be worried that if the appraisal came in low and you couldn't make up the difference with your own funds and you didn't go forward, I would be worried at that point about losing your earnest money. And here's why. If you agreed to overpay for a property, then your best and fairest and legally safest out is like, oh no, the appraisal came in low. Hey seller, do you want to take a lower sales price so I can keep doing that? And then you can make an agreement, yes, or you cannot make an agreement, no, and it is what it is. But normally in either case, the buyer gets their earnest money back. If you delete that without adding an extra provision that, says something like, hey, if the appraisal, this is what I actually worried about when I was talking to somebody. What if the appraisal comes back for a value, but it's way lower than you thought, and it's way lower than I thought because something about the appraisal made the house unfinanceable. Like, I'm just making something up. There is an obvious, big, almost definitely structural failing of the foundation, and you can't get financing at all. What happens then? If you don't literally write that the appraisal has to be approvable, because the standard language, and I'm going to botch this because I don't have it in front of me, is, that if the buyer and the property are approvable by the lender. So if you do have an appraisal, but the property's not approvable by the lender, but you waived the appraisal contingency, are you okay at that point? I don't know. I would want to make that clear up front if you were going to do that. Anyways, but let's just talk about this. So I think that some people might misunderstand the math of how it works when an appraisal comes in low. So let's just go over that. Let's just say that, hot bidding war, you decided you were going to buy the place for $500,000, despite the fact that, Zillow, whatever, said it was only worth $460, and the asking price was only like $465, but you agreed to buy it for $5,000. Contract, sign. I don't know why I'm doing a handshake for a contract. But so you do that. And then we get the financing going. I order your appraisal, and the appraisal comes back at, I don't know, $480. So it's $20,000 less than the sales price that you agreed on. So you need to know if you are waiving that get out of contract, or if you still want to go ahead, how much you owe. So let's say that you were doing the minimum 5% down. So that you're expecting to put 25% down, but oh no, the appraisal came in for $480. Well, here's the problem you're going to run into if you didn't know that was going to happen. So that 25% you put down doesn't cover that gap. From the lender's point of view, the value of the house is the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value, and you have to put 5% from the $480,000 down, and you have to supply the other $20,000. So just so you're aware, if you're going to be waiving that and paying the difference in cash, you're going to pay the down payment you were planning on already. Unless you did 20% down, you can switch to 15, whatever. But you're going to pay a down payment plus the entire gap from your own funds, whatever funds you were using to fund the transaction already. Again, if you're just hot on this place and it works for you, and you're sure this is the right decision for your family, and you're not completely emptying all your emergency funds to do so, I don't have any problem with you doing that. I'm not even gonna, I might tell you like, well, I wouldn't do that, but I'm not gonna tell you you shouldn't do that at all. But I would say that I would feel way more comfortable as a buyer letting the sellers know that you could pay more if there was a gap, but I wouldn't personally feel comfortable pre-agreeing to that unknown amount. I mean, we don't have certainty in this world. Like, really, we just don't have certainty in this world. But I hate to make, sweeping certain promises on an uncertain fact. So anyways, I hope this was useful for you. If you're in a bidding war, or even if you're just shopping for yourself, I hope the best for you. I'm out there home shopping myself. And actually this last few months is the first time that I've been looking at a home, really for me to live in with the family and stuff. And man, you just get dragged into those emotions. But anyways, if you have any questions, please email me, put a comment in, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Have an awesome day. Bye.